Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Is Michael Halterman putting on weight? These pics have fans concerned. 1,000 pounds. Sisters fans are growing seriously concerned about Amy's husband Michael Halterman. They think he might be packing on pounds and gaining a significant amount of weight. Turns out it was some photos Amy posted on Instagram that have fans freaking out about Michael. Amy Halterman flaunts weight loss, but what about Michael? Amy Halterman proudly put her weight loss on display recently. She and her husband Michael took their son Gage swimming for the first time. It looked to be a trip to a hotel with time spent by the pool. And Amy? Well, she rocked a polka dot bikini that really let it all hang out. In fact, it let it hang out so much so that some fans wondered if she might be pregnant again. In chatter on Facebook, some noted it looked a little like she was rocking a baby bump. This, however, is nothing more than rumor and fan speculation at this point in time. Fans were loving seeing Amy rocking her bikini, but some turned their attention to her husband. Michael Halterman appeared to be putting on some serious pounds since 1,000 pounds. Sisters Season 2 concluded. These fans were concerned Michael needed to start focusing on shedding some pounds too. After all, Gage deserved to have two happy and healthy parents. Her husband packing on the pounds makes sense in theory. Now, having an overweight spouse can be extremely overwhelming. Michael Halterman would have served as a caretaker and a husband for things Amy wasn't able to do on her own because of her size. Likewise, we know Michael was always assisting in pushing her sister Tammy around in her wheelchair. So he was getting a fair amount of exercise and activity simply by helping his wife and her sister. There seems to be some distance between Amy and Tammy these days. The assumption is that Tammy is in a facility working on her weight loss goals. So, Michael Halterman isn't having to take care of an overweight spouse as much. Likewise, he isn't pushing Tammy around as much if she's in a facility. This lack of activity could have caused him to sit down and rest. Perhaps a little too much. Check out these recent photos of Michael Halterman and see if you think he's put on some weight. The late autumn sun cast a soft glow over Davies County, but online the mood surrounding Michael Halterman was anything but soft. It began with a handful of new photos posted quietly to his social media. Shots that, in any other era, might have gone unnoticed. But this was the world of 1,000 pounds. Sisters, where every fan had opinions, theories, and a running commentary about the Halterman family. Michael, usually private and mild-mannered, had uploaded a few recent snaps. One of him grilling on the back porch, another holding little Glenn at the park, and one where he stood beside a massive grocery cart at Walmart. At first glance, they looked like normal life moments. But to fans who hadn't seen him clearly since the messy split from Amy Halterman, the photos sparked a tidal wave of speculation. He looks like he's put on weight, one follower wrote. Is Michael okay? He looks different, said another. Soon enough, dozens of comments poured in, some kind, some concerned, some not so kind. And while Michael wasn't the kind of man who lived for online attention, he certainly felt the weight of it. Maybe even more than the weight fans claimed he'd gained. Michael sat at his kitchen table early the next morning with a mug of coffee that had gone cold an hour earlier. His phone buzzed relentlessly. Notifications. Comments. DMs. He wasn't used to being the center of attention. Usually it was Amy or Tammy who filled the conversation threads. Now his face, rounder, softer, maybe a little fuller, had everyone talking. He sighed and pushed the phone aside. I didn't ask for all this, he muttered. He wasn't wrong. The past 2 years had been a whirlwind. The divorce, juggling co-parenting, adjusting to life outside the camera's lens, and figuring out how to be a steady presence for Gage and Glenn during the most chaotic time of their young lives. Food, for Michael, had always been both comfort and coping mechanism. And lately, coping was in high demand. Not that he'd fallen apart. He still went to work, still showed up for his kids, still kept a quiet but steady routine. But stress has a way of shaping a person, and for Michael, that shaping was showing. He picked up one of the photos. The grilling one had been taken by Gage. The little boy had insisted on learning how to hold the phone like mommy does. Michael smiled at the memory. The moment had been sweet, real, raw. But fans online weren't seeing the sweetness. They only saw the size of his shirt. Amy was scrolling through the same comments from her couch, a bowl of popcorn between her knees. She wasn't angry, not exactly, but she felt a strange tightening in her chest that she couldn't fully name. Concern? Guilt? Irritation? Maybe all three. She knew Michael had struggled. She also knew their divorce had shaken him harder than he ever admitted. It hadn't been easy on either of them. And though they weren't together, they were always tied through Gage and Glenn, and that tether had softened her toward him in ways she never expected. "Y'all need to chill," she muttered at her screen. "Let the man live." But fans weren't known for letting things go, especially when a Halterman or a Slayton was involved. As she read through the comments, Amy found herself wondering whether she should reach out. It wouldn't be weird, well, not too weird. They talked often enough about the kids. Checking in wouldn't hurt. Before she could second-guess herself, she typed, "Hey, saw the pics. You doing okay?" She hesitated, then hit send. Michael saw the message 15 minutes later. He smiled despite himself. "Yeah, just people talking. I'm fine." But Amy wasn't convinced, so she pushed a little harder. Fine, or I don't want to talk about it, fine." He chuckled under his breath. She still knew how to read him. "Bit of both," he wrote. "Just tired. Busy. Life stuff." A moment later, Amy replied, "Come over for dinner. The boys miss you. And I made chili." Michael paused. Chili. His favorite. Amy knew the way to get him to talk better than anyone. "All right. I'll swing by after work." Dinner at Amy's house felt familiar, comfortable, like a page torn out of an old life, but taped carefully into the new one. The boys were thrilled, running around the living room with the kind of energy that left both parents exhausted and amused at the same time. While the kids watched cartoons, Michael and Amy sat at the kitchen table, steaming bowls of chili in front of them. "You know," Amy began, "people say stuff about me all the time. About my weight. About my life. About how I look with no makeup. You get used to it." Michael nodded. "I know. I wasn't expecting people to make a big deal about me." "You're part of the story whether you like it or not," she said with a soft shrug. "And honestly, I think fans forget you've been stressed too." He took a slow bite, thinking, maybe I did gain a little. But I'm not falling apart. I'm just managing. "And that's okay," she said. "Nobody's perfect. And you ain't gotta explain yourself to strangers." He looked at her, really looked at her. "Thanks. For the invite. And the chili." Amy smirked. "Don't thank me yet. You still gotta help me wrangle the kids for bath time." They laughed, the tension melting away. Later that night, after Michael said goodbye and headed home, the online chatter continued. More fans speculated. More comments rolled in. But Michael felt something he hadn't felt in weeks: steadiness. He wasn't defined by a handful of photos. He wasn't a headline. He wasn't a storyline. He was a dad. A man doing his best. A person still finding his footing after a tough few years. And maybe, just maybe, he didn't need the world to understand him. He just needed the people who mattered to. He turned off his phone, stood in his quiet house, and looked at a picture on the fridge. Him, Gage, and Glenn, all smiling big, all messy from making esmores last summer. If fans thought he'd put on weight, so be it. He'd gained far more important things along the way. A new life. A new perspective. And most importantly, a new strength. The kind that didn't show in pictures, but the kind that mattered.